Hey everyone, today we're actually going to do something a little bit different. We're going to start talking a little bit about psychology and actually looking at how some very important psychological principles have affected history throughout time. And one of the things that we're going to start looking at is why people obey. During this unit, and even some other times throughout the year, we've talked about things that people have done that maybe defied common sense, defied logic. And we haven't really talked about what some of the reasons or motivations or factors that would lead people to do something when they know they shouldn't. Yes, we talked about why people do bad things, but why do they obey someone who told them to do those things? And when we mean obey, what I want you to realize and write down is that when I say obey, it means when we follow directions of someone that we feel is an authority figure. So here, little kids follow their moms, right? They obey them. Little kids see their mothers as authority figures, and so when mom says something like, put away your toys, we go ahead and we obey. So, what you can title this is why people obey. And there's a couple different factors that lead people to obey more than others. Okay, so we're going to go through each factor one by one. The first factor is something that's called the legitimacy of authority. And what I mean by legitimacy is the person giving orders someone that's worthy of obeying? In other words, it's acceptable to follow what this person says. There's some people that we would definitely say are not worthy of obeying. Look at this guy. This guy's creepy. If this guy told you to go, run in the street or, who knows what he's asking for, you probably wouldn't do it because he doesn't look like he's an authority figure. He looks kind of shady and like he may want to do bad things to you. On the other hand, these two individuals definitely would look like an authority figure. And what's unique about both of them is that they're both wearing some sort of uniform. The police officer's wearing his official blues, and the doctor's wearing his lab coat. Now, some studies that we'll talk about is that psychologists have studied just how readily people are willing to obey someone just based on wearing a uniform, because that's probably one of the biggest factors that we use to determine legitimacy. If a person's wearing a uniform, well, they must be legitimate, right? Because not everyone can wear a policeman's uniform. Not everyone can wear, a doctor's lab coat. I mean, these are the kinds of things subconsciously we think of when we are given orders to do something. The second factor is known as a buffer between an aggressor and the victim. And I've given you some definitions here, so it's probably a good idea to go ahead and write those down. A buffer means something between two people. Okay, the aggressor is the person doing the harm. So if someone told me to go punch someone else, I would be the aggressor because I'm going to be the one doing the punching. And the unlucky individual who's getting my punch would be the victim. So there's some things that would make a person obey more than in other situations. The first buffer is between aggressor and victim in the realm of the aggressor viewing the victim as less than human. It's much easier to harm someone if you don't think they're a human, and we'll get to some examples in a minute of exactly what I mean by less than human. There's also a buffer if there's actual physical distance between the aggressor and the victim. If I can throw a rock from across the street at someone and they don't see me throw it, I'm more likely to do it because there's actual distance between me and the person I'm ready to harm. And the last buffer between an aggressor and a victim is that the aggressor accepts that there's a higher justification for what he has to do. So I have to go punch that guy because maybe God wills it. or if I don't punch this guy, he's gonna go kidnap a baby. There's some reasoning that we use to convince ourselves that what we're doing is acceptable. So going over some of these examples. So here we have a picture of a rat, and you see that he's wearing a Jewish star, Star of David, and he's got some other stereotypical things that people usually associate with Jewish individuals. This is exactly what Hitler compared Jewish people to. He said that they were no better than rats. And so it was easier for Nazi soldiers to go ahead and do bad things to Jewish citizens because they said, well, they're low-born people, kind of like rats. Remember, I also said that if there's actual physical distance between the aggressor and the victim, it's more likely that harm will be done. So here we have a drone strike. How easy it would be to just hit a button and then go ahead and fire upon someone, because you're not there actually pulling a trigger on a gun or having to stab someone or do something right in their face. You can just go send a drone to go ahead and do it for you. And the last is the higher justification. Here is a flag of Germany, and Germany had decided to go to World War II to try to bring it back to its old state of glory, right? Hitler wanted to get Germany back to where it used to be, where it was a well-respected country. So it was much easier for people to buy into what he was saying in order to go ahead and achieve that. The third factor is something called gradual commitment, and some people like to call it the snowball effect. So either one of those is fine with me. And there's two types of things that go into gradual commitment. The first is that if what is asked is questionable, a person has to justify following those orders each time. So every time I'm told to go punch someone, I have to find a new reason to justify to myself why it's okay to punch someone. The first time I punch someone, oh, okay, he told me to. But every time I go ahead and punch him again, I gotta see whether or not it's still okay. But the thing is that over time, obeying becomes routine. So what I start doing is I start justifying, well, if I did it before, it must be okay to do it again. And on and on and on, it becomes easier and easier and easier to go ahead and punch someone again. Okay, it's kind of like lying. They always say that the first lie is the hardest, and then the more you lie, it just becomes kind of routine. And then sometimes people start lying, and they don't even know why they're lying. And so here you have kind of a graphical representation of what the snowball effect is. So here you have something small, but then the more you do it, it becomes easier and easier. And then you see how the ball gets bigger, and there's an arrow there that says the no going back point. So eventually, you're already doing it. You gotta finish, right? And then before you know it, things could sometimes spiral out of control because you feel like there's no going back. And last but not least, there's something that we call buffers between aggressor and leader. So again, buffers are things between two people, but instead of the aggressor and the victim now, it's between the aggressor and the person giving the aggressor the orders. So again, physical distance plays a role. Only now it's slightly different than the distance between the aggressor and the victim. Now, the closer the person giving the orders is to the person he's telling them to, the more likely he is to do it. So say, for instance, if you play a sport and a coach got right in your face and told you to do something, you're more likely to do it than if he's just shouting to you from across the field or maybe while you're walking in the locker room, right? If he's right there telling you, you're more likely to do it. There's also a buffer that includes the likelihood of obeying is affected by the amount of people going along with the orders. So if you're in the military, you're in the army, you're in a troop of soldiers, right? They're all doing whatever the order given was. You're more likely to go along because you want to fit in, you want to go with the group. Okay? So if there's not a lot of people, dissenting, which means not going along with the orders, then you, in turn, are less likely to go along with the orders. So the more people not going along with the orders, the more likely it is you're not going to go along with the orders, and then vice versa. If everyone's just following along, you want to follow along too. And then last but not least, is there a diffusion of responsibility? Meaning people low on the ladder who are told to do something questionable kind of make the excuse most of the time, I was just following orders. It's easier to pass the buck. So if I just say, well, he told me to do it, I had to do it, he's the authority, it becomes easier for you to justify it, because it's not you really that's doing it. You are just a tool of the leader who told you what to do. Okay?